What's up, Hebrews and Shebrews? It's Lauren Isaacs here. Today I want to discuss some terms that we really shouldn't be using in everyday language, but we use them anyway. The first term is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That does not exist. Never has, never will. And there are very simple proofs to show you that it doesn't exist. The other term is actually the Arab-Israeli conflict. Now, I'm guilty of using this myself in colloquial language, but it doesn't exist because the only accurate term that describes whatever conflict is going on in this region is actually the Arab-Jewish conflict. It has nothing to do with Israelis. It certainly has nothing to do with Palestinians. It is the Arab-Jewish conflict. So, why is it, first of all, not an Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, it's very easy. This conflict predates the invention of the Palestinians by thousands of years. This conflict has been going on for thousands of years, but if we want to stay current and modern and we only want to talk about contemporary history, fine. It still predates the Palestinians, as the advent of the Palestinians came about from Yasser Arafat when he invented the PLO in 1964, and in doing so, he invented nationhood and a movement and a history of a people who didn't exist prior to 1964. Easy proofs. The Palestinians didn't participate in any of Israel's major historical wars. 1948, 1967, 1973, none of these wars had anything to do with the Palestinians. And you'd think if they have been here for time immemorial, the Palestinians claim that they predate everyone. Jesus was a Palestinian and the Palestinianosauruses roamed the earth. You'd think they claim that they were here forever, then why did they participate in any of the major wars where Israel was attacked? In 1948, in Israel's Independence Day war, they were attacked by 6 Arab armies. The Palestinians were not one of them. Also, interestingly enough, the Palestinians, their Nakba, their great catastrophe, is the 1948 when Israel was declared a state, and yet they didn't participate in the Independence Day War. If it was such a catastrophe for them, you'd think they would have participated in the war. That's interesting. Also, easy proof, the fact that for 19 years, from 1948 to 1967, when the Jordanians, the Arab colonizers, illegally occupied Judea and Samaria and then renamed it the West Bank, and they illegally occupied, half of Jerusalem, the Palestinian state was not established. They did not establish one. None of the other Arab countries vied for a Palestinian state. Why? Because the Palestinians didn't exist. They didn't come onto the scene, and their history wasn't invented until good old Yasser Arafat came along. So those 19 years also prove it. Actually, the term West Bank itself also proves that the conflict really has nothing to do with the Palestinians, only the Arabs, because it's the West Bank of Jordan. It's on the east side of Israel. It's not the West Bank of Israel. It's the West Bank of Jordan. So it has nothing to do with the Palestinians. Also, Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, which right now is restricted to Jews because it is still being occupied by Arab colonizers and conquerors, also proves that this has nothing to do with the Palestinians. This has everything to do with the Jordanians, or the Arab colonizers right now, and it has been since 1948 in that specific spot. Again, predates the invention of the Palestinians. So that's a very easy one. We shouldn't be using the term Israeli-Palestinian conflict because it is totally incorrect. It's a misnomer, and it's offensive to the fact that there are other parties involved. None of them are the Palestinians. Why is the term Arab-Israeli conflict incorrect? Sorry, I almost lost my train of thought. That is because, again, this also predates the re-establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, when the name of the country was changed to modern-day Israel. Of course, this conflict is about the ancient Israelites, but what are they? Those are just the Jews. To say that this conflict is about the Arab-Israeli conflict is offensive, and it minimizes the actual conflict. And, Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem during World War II, was buddy-buddies with Hitler, right? He was best friends with him. They both had a vested interest in killing all the Jews. Regardless of what some American politicians say nowadays, that the Islamic world was so welcoming of Jews during the Holocaust, that's a farce, that's a lie. But Hajj Amin al-Husseini in Jerusalem was friends with Hitler. It was about wiping the Jews off the face of the earth. No Israelis were walking around at the time. The Zohan wasn't walking around. It was a long time before the reestablishment of the modern state of Israel that ancient Israelites were walking around, which just means Jews. It's actually interesting. The 1920, well, if we go back, first of all, the 1920, 1921 Arab revolts and riots, which was the catalyst to the Haganah being formed because we had to protect ourselves from all these Arab revolts and riots. These, again, before the reestablishment of the State of Israel. We can't call it an Arab-Israeli conflict. It was an Arab-Jewish conflict. The riots were against the Jews. The 1929 massacre of over 60 Jews in cold blood in Hebron was Jews. It wasn't Israelis. And the Peel Commission, interestingly enough, the Peel Commission in 1937, which was one of the first suggestions of a partition of the state, they did not suggest partitioning it into an Israeli and an Arab state. They suggested partitioning it into an Arab-Jewish state because it was always about the Jews. And the Jews accepted the offer, by the way, and the Arabs rejected it, of course, because of Arab rejectionism. But this all disproves it's not an Arab-Israeli conflict. That minimizes it. And that's being very reductionistic. It takes away from the actual conflict and the struggle of thousands of years. This is an Arab-Jewish conflict. Before I say goodbye, I want to wish a huge happy birthday to Mama Isaacs. My mommy's birthday is tomorrow, and I want to wish you all the best, Mama. And also, it breaks my heart that we're not together, but Ad 120, and please God we'll be together next year. Am Yisrael Chai, guys. Thanks for joining us. Take care.